This is our final segment here, though, at the Boys Are Back in Town Democratic Roundtable post-election pre-General Assembly, and we've been joined by a woman by the name of Susan Platt, who is rumored to be running for lieutenant governor. So I'm going to go ahead and predict that she is going to run for lieutenant governor. This is my narrative, not her statement, but been in this business long enough to know when it walks like a duck and talks like a duck and quacks like a duck, they're running for office. Also,
not
Ben
until
Tribbett,
I get a nickname from you, John.
Ben Tribbett, Beauty.
I think we have Beauty.
And the Beast.
No.
Beauty and the Beast. But Ben Tribbett, rumored to be running her campaign.
Rumored by you. Rumored by you. No one else is rumored.
That's what matters, though, and that changes all the odds. Speaking of consultants, so I've got Jill Vogel on my show the other day. This is kind of my segue into Senator Stanley. So I've got Jill Vogel on my show live at the Advance the other day, and hovering around her like a big, I don't know what you call it, like a big bird hovering is Chris Janikowski, one of the Republican consultants, hovering. You want to get in every word to be sure that every word is hovering around there.
That's an A-lister.
That's an A-lister right there.
Adam was just fighting with him on Twitter a couple weeks ago.
I know, Chris Janikowski.
I thought it was interesting he attacked me within the first 24 hours that I was looking at running in the race.
I wouldn't know why he was be involved in that.
I saw that coming from the speaker, but, you know.
After he just ran
I got a contribution from him one time.
Chris Janikowski, I mean, the guy wins a lot of races. He did lose the Ken Peterson thing there, but he's won a lot of races anyway. He was hovering about, and then, of course, after that, he was on me because on Twitter I was saying all kinds of nice things about Senator Stanley, basically saying if he got in the race, he was going to win. He'd be the chalk because Richard Krause is his consultant, who I think the two best consultants in the state, Republican Krause, Democrat Tribbett. That's just my opinion based on what I've seen. And when we ran for delegate for Trump, I asked Ann, I said to my wife, I'm like, we're going to run with outsiders. I don't know what to do. I've never run a campaign. I talk about it, but I don't know what to do. And she said, I don't want anybody but Krause running our race. So Janikowski was on me for that. And I'm like, look, dude, okay, I stay at Senator Stanley's home. I play with his children. I stay at Krause's home. I'm viciously loyal, coupled with the fact that I'm always right if he gets any wins. So that's that. But having said that, he didn't get in. Chap.
Yeah,
Why?
Well, I don't know. All I can tell you is Bill talks to me about his law practice, and it sounds like he's making money. And so it's always tough to walk away from a situation where you're making money. So that may be a reason. I know he enjoys being in the Senate. We enjoy being in the Senate with him. He does a good job. I may come back to regret those remarks someday, but that's how I feel. And so, there are times in your life where your life's going pretty well. Why screw it up? Maybe he faced that fork in the road. I do agree with you. He would have been the most effective Republican candidate, at least from my untutored perspective.
He would have beaten Adams.
Right. Big loss for the Republicans not to have him because he was actually a viable candidate in the general election.
Right.
Where I'm not sure Adams against Herring as an incumbent is even viable.
But Stanley would have won that election. I mean, that guy, when he decides to get in, he's got formidable opportunity, no question about it, and not a lot of enemies. Right, he's hard not to like. Plus,
he went to Oakton High School, went to Lanier Intermediate.
I know he was up here in Northern Virginia, but Ben, I'm not saying this just to blow smoke. Obviously, we're good friends. You're with me all the time. I have tremendous respect for what you do, but I really think when you have a top consultant, I think it really matters, guys. Wouldn't you? I mean, David. I mean, and his consultant is Richard Krause. And he's kind of sneaky smart. He sneaks up on you. He's not well known. He used to be the political director of the RPV, but I absolutely swear by the guy. And I think that if Stanley got in this race with Krause, I think they would have won.
Yeah. Well, I had Robbie Mook for my first campaign, and I saw how this can be done. I don't know if there's ever been as good a House race as he put together for me. I won by 18 points in a district that Mark Warner had won for governor by 1%, and a couple of years earlier, and it does make a difference.
You offered to take him again during the presidential
I did.
campaign and match the
I was going to
funding,
pay him. I was going to pay him $100 more a month, and he chose Hillary over running my reelect. And what do you do with people?
He would have been a lot better off if he chose your reelect.
Hindsight,
based on what happened, right? He spent $1.2 billion and got beat by.
Well,
Trump
I think
would spend half
I think
as much.
I think it's one of those things that this has, this campaign is either the wave of the future or it's an outlier. Who knows? But he did everything right. You can't believe how well the ground game was organized.
They had no message. I mean, you got to have a message. You had none. They had no message.
I think you guys are talking about two different things. He's talking about his House race. You're talking about the
it is in that race he did the things that he was really good at, which is organizing the grassroots and what have you. But yeah, the messaging end of things, I don't think that they thought that they needed tremendous messaging against Donald Trump, and it was just a question of turnout and what have you. It turned out not to be the case.
Well,
and the
polling, as you lost,
and the polling, what's interesting was in the Romney race, Republicans were convinced that their polling was right and the public polling was wrong. In this one, I think Democrats figured we got it right and they've got it wrong, and you told us right early on that you were looking at polls that you had confidence in that was going to predict a Trump win, and you were correct. So
I was.
I don't know if you can.
I also predicted
you can't
Romney
predict
would
anything anymore.
I also said coming out of the convention in Tampa that Romney would get beat in a landslide because he didn't have a message either. And I was done when him and Ann got on stage, and I think it was Ann Romney who talked about they were eating cold pizza off an ironing board because they had no money. And okay. Ann Romney's father has like $2 billion, and Mitt Romney's father is chairman of GMC, and they're eating off an ironing board. I mean, come on, the whole thing was so stupid. Ben, you wanted to bash. What do you want to bash?
Oh, I wasn't jumping into bash. I was going to just jump in on your consultant comment and just add something to it, which is my opinion is that you can tell a good candidate not by who they bring in around their campaign, but if they've been in politics a while, if they have the same people around them for long periods of time, because politics is a loyalty business. Mm-hmm. And I always, having grown up in Northern Virginia, look at the model of successful politician of being someone like a Tom Davis. And what was the model of Tom Davis was the same people surrounded him for 30 years. And everyone in Northern Virginia knew somebody who was around Tom Davis. And if they needed to get something to Tom Davis, there was a place to do that. And to me, that's the mark of a successful politician. If you're one of these guys that goes through, 15 aides in 12 years, I won't mention which legislator it is. They're not at this table. But there's been some that average more than 1 aide a year and can't keep anyone on their staffs. Well, that's the mark of someone you don't want to have in office. Mm-hmm. But the people that are consistent and have the same people around them, those are also the ones who are the most successful running for office. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily, bringing in a particular consultant. It's about, what is your outlook as a candidate of, do people want to be around you or not? And you can tell that very quickly with candidates and
I think
jobs
that was what
was
so interesting about this 2016 presidential race too, is it kind of was just so different than anything we've ever seen before, because if you look at the Clinton campaign, they didn't get rid of a single person. They didn't have, a layover. They didn't move anyone out. There was a lot on the Trump side.
Oh yeah.
But with that said,
that's why the Trump campaign kind of defied all the odds.
Yeah.
It did effectively everything wrong. No ground campaign, no money raising, staff disruptive, terrible, videos coming out. And
I mean, to me,
we still won because we had a message.
To me, Adam, and
somehow it worked.
I would bash Hillary's campaign and say this. I think she marginalized one of her biggest strengths in that she has the same group of people that have been around them for years. And I think that she felt like after the 2008 race, which was a unique loss, that she needed to bring in people that knew things about politics and understood technology. But, politics is the same thing it's always been. And when I first got started running campaigns, and I remember, I'll give you an example. My first campaign I ran was 1999 for a school board race. And the first one I did for legislature was when Chap ran in 2001. That was so long ago that we didn't have an electronic voter file. So when we wanted to do a mailing to a specialty group of people, we had to have someone sit on his computer upstairs and enter in 9-digit codes for every voter into a spreadsheet for 10,000 people so that they could be coded in the database, because the van didn't exist. You couldn't click on their names. Yeah. So, technology changes. People say, oh, well, this new technology is happening. Politics is the same thing it's always been. And when you start saying, I have to bring in all these people who I don't really know that well because they know all these things that I don't know, really the thing that Hillary's campaign was missing this year was being more like her husband's campaign from 1992.
Yeah.
That campaign would have won this year, traveling the state, going to small towns, this whole campaign was about big cities and the new emerging Democratic coalition.
Right. It was
And
trying to copy Obama.
It was, and it wasn't, and so sometimes, you just, you run the last campaign. And I think Hillary Clinton lost the presidency twice because twice in 2008 and 16, she ran the last campaign.
Interesting, Ben.
And not
That's a
to
very
the
good point.
current campaign trying to respond.
I've been here 3.5 hours, and Ben finally made sense.
That's what we have him on our show. Now, he doesn't do early, right? You know that,
Okay,
chap.
right.
He lived in your
better
basement.
when we get closer to 10
He
a.m.
lived in your basement, right? We both know Ben doesn't do early.
Right. And by the way, I've had to listen to him spew inanities about the Redskins secondary while we're off the air.
He's good at telling people to do early, though. He told me to make sure I'm not on Clinton campaign time.
And one of the
He
interesting
was here on time. He gets on here on. He's always on time, but he doesn't do early.
There was
He doesn't
one thing kind of on the same subject, but I didn't get to mention this earlier when we were talking about the party, and there may be disagreement, but the one thing I can say, and I have no idea, whether Susan's going to support me in this DNC vice chair race or not, but Susan Swecker, I think, in my conversations with other state party chairs, has been an example of what a lot of state parties want to do with theirs, and she, even immediately after the election when people were, turning their TVs off, a lot of them did that before, she was calling, making sure that they were going to get the data, that it was going to get transferred, that was needed immediately. She fought for it. And, she's built these relationships in terms of, donors and fundraising that I think is incredibly important to this party. And one of the things that I was pushing for, because others were, was for her to run for ASDC chair, which is one of the 5th vice chair slots. That would probably preclude me regionally from running for that based on the way that kind of there's the gender diversity and regional balance. But, she's got a lot of support and has made this state, in terms of a party, I think an example of where a lot of other parties want to get to.
Well,
throughout the
there's
country.
no question the Democratic Party of Virginia that Susan and Terry McAuliffe has put together with the money that McAuliffe has brought in, with Brian Zuzanek, who they brought in. I mean, it's a machine, Ben. There's no question about it. But having said that, and Susan is very gracious. She comes on my show a lot, but they don't like Ben Tribbett much down there. I don't know.
I got to interrupt you.
They don't
one
like Ben.
second.
I got to tell this quick story, and then I'll go to Susan. But when they allowed me to broadcast during the Democratic convention from their hotel, when I told them that I wanted Ben to join me, I really had to beg Susan to let me do that. She finally relented, but they don't like you much there, Ben. And what I said to Susan is, Susan, what's not to like?
Can I
Go
just
ahead.
add that Susan Swecker and I have been comrades in arms since 1993.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be remiss of me to not say she is the pro's pro. And I'm so proud of what she's done with the Democratic Party and how it will move forward under her leadership.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. And just again on this DNC vice chair race, when I was weighing these options, she was able to, remove herself from that party chair hat while staying neutral and giving me the pros and cons of both, and didn't persuade me in any direction other than saying, this is a personal decision. We all know that, and even when you're going for chair and running a party, it's like running for other offices. But I think she has been an incredible ally for the party, not just in state but nationally, because folks do reach out and say, how can we be more like that? Virginia,
She's
New
got
Jersey.
a machine going. There's no question about it. We got 7 minutes. We got to get to the Republican Senate race 2018. Somebody to challenge Tim Kaine. I've got 4 candidates in the race right now. Former Governor Jim Gilmore is going to run. Delegate Jimmy Mena run. Tom Davis is going to run. That's number 3. Actually, I've got 5. Pete Snyder is going to run, or so I think, number 4, because I always say that. And he doesn't run, but I think he is. And then searching for relevance somewhere. And carpetbagger Carly Fiorina pops up again, says that she is going to run. Carly Fiorina, I'm just like, how do you get rid of this lady? I mean, every time I turn around, she's popping up. She ran a disastrous Senate race in California where she got beat by 10 and still hasn't paid her vendors, outshipped jobs to Bangladesh. Then she runs for president. That was a disaster.
She's
Couldn't get any
Chinese
traction
steel?
there.
Are you sure she's running for the United States Senate? Because I think she's for state Senate. She's actually in Scott Somerville's seat.
Yeah,
You sure she's not running against
No,
Somerville?
she's running for. Maybe she is. I mean, she's a search of relevance.
Is Gilmore planning on grandfathering in current car taxes that are due?
I don't know, but those are going to be the candidates: Tom Davis, Pete Snyder, Carly Fiorina, Jimmy Massey, Jim Gilmore.
All right,
Those
I'm going to
are
go on.
probably
I'm going to
that
go on an early prediction here and say Jimmy Massey, and I'll tell you why.
Why?
I think all the other people that you mentioned, Tom Davis, Pete Snyder, all the major candidates are going to chicken out of this. It's going to be some random state legislator, because Tim Kaine, after you see what happens in 2017 with the reaction to Trump, is going to look like a very, very strong bet for re-election in 2018, and no one's going to want to take him on in a midterm election.
Even Tom Davis?
Even Tom Davis.
Wow.
Yeah,
Chap?
it's funny. I would have said, if you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have said this would have been a Republican pickup because I would have figured Hillary would have been elected president. You get the reaction, the Republicans pick up the seat. With Trump being elected, I think that heavily improves Tim's chances. It's funny you didn't mention Barbara Comstock because that would be kind of a no-brainer that she would look to move up, and I think she would have if it was an open seat or if it was a Bobby Scott. I mean, I think she would have run against Bobby Scott. I would say either Snyder or Massey. I don't think Tom will do it.
Yeah.
What about Eric? Some people say Eric Cantor might get back in. He's never going to get a Republican nomination.
He's never done what he needed to do, which was go back and reconnect with people and figure out why he got voted out.
Right.
And people just don't want. It just seems like we're in a period of time in this country where there are no second acts in politics, and people coming back from
the dead.
The dead. Well, yeah, the dead. Yeah, coming back from the dead. Eric Cantor or Tom. Although I'm a big admirer of Tom. People continually want to see something new, something different. That's where they want to put their hopes and dreams, and that's what they're going to do.
I think the other thing too is, I mean, I don't want to go back to the party here, but after the Trump campaign said that they were pulling out of Virginia, and then
wrong.
But you still had
They were never in Virginia. How could they pull out?
Exactly.
Lie.
John, I love you, but you guys were never in Virginia. I mean, you had a ton of
John, you did get hammered.
But on that front,
Got beat by 220. That's why I'm with you all today and not on the transition.
And Kanye's going to be in the cabinet instead.
Instead of me.
Yeah, Kanye.
but I think on that front, the other piece to add to that too is you look at Virginia, not just with each month and year, but it is a state that continually is moving forward and progressing. And I just think that each year you go by, you get to 2018, it is still a state that she won.
Okay, Adam, you're off topic. Who is going to be the Republican nominee 2018?
name.
A name for the Senate race? I have no idea. I think Comstock will take a serious look at it.
No, she isn't going to run. She would never win a Republican.
Yeah,
Tim
I
Kaine's going to win
agree.
in a landslide.
What?
Tim Kaine's going to win a landslide.
I do agree with Ben's original assessment, which is it's probably going to be someone that most folks don't know around the state or doesn't have an upstate profile and so forth.
Let me just tell you, I think I have to agree with Ben. Tim Kaine is just such a caring and thoughtful and great representative for this Commonwealth.
Always on message, Susan.
No, hey,
Always
hey, let
on
me tell you.
message.
Hey, let me tell you.
Yeah, but he
You
was
gotta
a disaster
bash
as a
people.
vice. But wait a minute,
I
he was
believe
a
this, and I do
disaster.
not
He was a
think-
disaster as a vice presidential candidate. He was going to rallies and getting 25 people. Susan, 25 people. I could have a rally in downtown Fairfax right now and get over 25 people.
Can I tell you some inside
They'd be called
information on
curious
that?
onlookers.
I'll tell you.
I think the people of Virginia know Tim Kaine, know what he's done, know what's in his heart, and know that he has their best.
Well, they
best
certainly
interest.
didn't. They
And I
certainly
don't
didn't
think
show him any
anybody's
love in
gonna come
Miami.
close.
But let me tell you
Buchanan
something.
got 28
Let me tell you something on
That's
that.
not
On that
Virginia.
front, it was less about people not showing up and more about staff on the ground that said, "We are inundated with surrogates, even if one of them is the vice presidential candidate, and we need to get out voters."
Look,
If you-
I like Tim Kaine. He was a disaster as a vice presidential candidate.
I think there's one specific event that you're referring to, but
There
I mean,
was three of them.
but if you go back
she
to
should have picked Mark Warner, but she didn't. But okay, so I got to get out. So your prediction's Massey. Your prediction is
What did I say? Snyder.
Snyder. You're like me.
I
Both
keep
of
wait-
us pick Snyder for
I keep
everything.
waiting for a donation from Pete Snyder.
One of
So
these
I'm gonna
days, it's
keep
got to be
complimenting
right.
him until I get a donation.
David, go ahead.
Nobody on that list.
Nobody on somebody new. Mm-hmm. All right, I think you're all wrong. I think Tom Davis gets in. I think he wins.
No.
I think he gets in. He spends millions of
On a
dollars.
tough race like that, absolutely not.
No.
He's not going to get a tough race. you think?
No, he would have run in the Senate race if
Bobby Scott.
if it was Bobby Scott, because there would have been a backlash to the
Clinton.
new Democratic administration. Tom
That
Davis
would-
is
that
way
would
too
have
smart
won,
to
yeah.
get in this race.
I think things have changed in Virginia. Look, John Warner did. Look who he endorsed. I mean,
Who did he?
John Warner endorses Democrats
He
now.
endorses- he endorses
Period.
Democrats. Anyway, if Hillary had picked Mark Warner, I'm not sure she would have won, but I think she would have had a better showing. I love Tim Kaine. I get him on my show all the time, but vice presidential candidate. I mean, you're running for VP against somebody that's heading the polls, and you have a rally, and you get 27 people to show up. I just don't think that's a good sign.
But
going
with all due
forward.
respect, I mean, I think Trump did an event in Ohio the other day that had about 27 people. I think that was one event in the campaign, and
We never had an
They were
event
into
that
it.
had under thousands of people, but look,
Post-election-
you guys keep spinning it, and that's fine.
post-election,
I appreciate
Trump
the
Trump
spin.
just did an event in Ohio that
We got to
had
get
no
out.
one there.
Spins over. All I know.
2.5 million
Sue
votes.
Cravens for Rookie of the Year.
Up for that. Look, Redskins win Monday night. That is
Yes,
my big
run the
prediction. We'll end
table.
with that.
Run the table.
And Tennessee Titans have to get through Kansas City on Sunday. We got to go to Arrowhead. We're going to lose. That's going to be the end of us. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network. We're out of time. Big story coming out of this event. Susan Platt's going to run for Lieutenant Governor. Ben Tribbett is going to be her consultant and campaign manager, and then all hell breaks loose.
And Mike Henry will run the general.